Hey everybody, it's me and I'm here with an overview of next month's Great Artist Lesson. We will be continuing our American Artist Series for our 3rd through 5th graders. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the lesson and talk about the project itself. This next month we are going to be talking about Norman Rockwell. He was a regionalism artist, which is an artist who depicts realistic scenes from kind of like small town Americana type of feel. And he is a big reflection of the American culture. He has very broad appeal for everybody. So let's get into a little bit about who he was, how he got there, and what he did in order to become a great artist. So first I'll give a little overview of the lesson and then I will talk about the project. And we start a lesson where we usually do, which is with the artist's childhood. And we started off by telling our kids where he was born. And a little fun fact about him is that his dad used to read him wonderful classic books, such as Oliver Twist and David Copperfield. And being the creative child that he was, he didn't have fun books like Dog Man or Captain Underpants with all those wonderful pictures in them. So he had to use creative visualization, and he would draw the characters and the scenes that he heard his dad read to him. Kind of a little fun fact for them. On this slide, this is also something that maybe some kids could relate to, is that Norman Rockwell was bullied a little bit. He was a skinny kid and he wasn't very athletic, unlike his brother. So he decided that he was going to focus on the things that he was good at. And that required him to be a little industrious. And he had a lot of determination in spite of the bullying that was going on for him. He decided he wanted to go to art school and focus on the skills that he did really well. But in order for him to go to art school, we talked to the kids about the fact that he had to find a way to do that, and he had to work. He earned a whopping 25 cents a day, delivering mail, making drawings, teaching people how to draw. And not only did he have to earn the money, then he had to take a subway or a trolley to New York City for 2 hours. He would sit on this thing for 2 hours just so that he could take art school and have his dreams real. Next, we'd talk about how he turned what he was good at into a paycheck and just go over some of the biggest milestones in his life. His first real paycheck that he received illustrating a book, and then we talk a little bit about his time with Boys Life magazine and the Boy Scouts. And then we get into the really big one, the one that he is most known for. I mean, of course, the Boy Scout one he is very known for, but the major one that he is known for is that at 22 years of age, he was already starting his career in his teens, but at 22 years of age, he was writing for the Saturday Evening Post, a publication that was created by Benjamin Franklin. And he worked with them for 55 years, created over 300 covers. And he was very popular. Every time one of his covers was printed, he was on the cover for that particular magazine, they would have to print 250,000 more just to keep up with supply and demand. So this slide is just about kind of talking about a little bit about his career and how he did earn a paycheck doing exactly what he loved. Here we discuss one of the best tools that Norman Rockwell used for 25 years, and that is live models. We talk about how he was a brilliant craftsman and he paid his models $2 to sit for him, but they would sit there for him and he would position their bodies in such a way. He would make them do specific facial expressions in order to convey the story he wanted to tell. He was considered an excellent craftsman when it came to telling a story through his paintings. His studio and the time with his models was always considered very fun. He had music playing, and it was just a very fun environment. After a while, he would bring models in and have a photographer there, and the photographer would take pictures of the models from different angles, and then he would turn those pictures into the paintings that we know and love. And this just kind of shows those pictures, and it's just kind of a cool way for the kids to see how those pictures got turned into paintings. We also, at this point, will show the kids one of the things that he painted. We have a printed poster that you have hanging up in the classroom, and it's the triple self-portrait. And it just shows that he was a fun guy because he had fun when he was asked to do a self-portrait. He didn't just do a painting of his face. He had to do the whole experience to tell the whole story, what it would be like if he had to paint his own self-portrait. During World War I, Norman Rockwell had a calling to join the military. And bless his little heart, he tried to join the military, but he was underweight the first time he tried to join. So he did everything he could to pack on the pounds. And when he did eventually get into the Navy, they assigned him to draw cartoons of some of the other personnel. And then eventually he started doing the layouts and cartoons for the official Navy magazine, Afloat and Ashore. We fast forward to World War II, where we talk about some of the most influential paintings that Norman Rockwell did. During the State of the Union, Franklin Roosevelt talked about something called the Four Freedoms. They were essential human rights and that they were supposed to be universally protected. Well, a bell went off for Norman Rockwell, and he considered this the best idea I ever had. And he painted a visual depiction of what the president spoke of. It took him 6 months to do it. Well, he went to the government and he said, hey, look at these great paintings that I did, and they didn't bite. So the magazine, the Post, said, well, let's print them. Well, then the Treasury Department came knocking and they said, you know what? These are pretty darn good. We'd like to use them to sell our war bonds. In turn, though those paintings, when they started asking people to buy war bonds, it got them $132 million. I would say that that's probably pretty influential, wouldn't you say? Norman Rockwell was known for capturing the humorous side of life, but as the years wore on and the older that he got, he started to draw more about national events, such as the Civil Rights Movement. At this point, we reference one of our pre-printed art pieces called The Problem We All Live With. And we just have a brief discussion with the kids and ask what they think is happening in that particular piece of artwork. Then we go on to use this slide to talk about it and talk about how Norman used the model by putting her feet on wooden planks to show the movement in that particular art piece. At this point, we have some small posters that you can pass around to the kids so that they can have an up-close look at some of his pieces of work. There are 3 posters, though, that you don't want to pass around because those are going to go with the next slide and lead us into our transition discussion. But they're called the connoisseur. But at this point, we just talk about some statistics here. 65 years of a career, created over 4,000 pieces of work, 20 different publications. And Norman Rockwell had said that he wanted to die while painting. Well, the reality of it is that 6 months before he died, he had started a painting, and it remains on an easel unfinished. He died at the age of 84 in 1978, and the quote that's here pretty much sums up Norman Rockwell's direction when it came to painting. The view of life I communicate in my pictures excludes the sordid and ugly. I paint life as I would like it to be. At this point, we transition into this month's project by dipping back into last month's project and linking the two together. There was only one abstract painting that Norman Rockwell did, and it kind of was in an effort to poke fun at Jackson Pollock and artists alike. So the history behind this, and I found this very interesting and very funny, the history behind it is that there was a very big heated debate between the abstract painter and the figurative painters. There were those who said that the visual storytelling of the visual painters was very kitsch and mainstream, and that the abstract painters like Pollock were very complex and thought-provoking. So Norman Rockwell was a little cheeky, and he did a Saturday Night Post cover depicting his own version of a Pollock. He did everything he could to make it exactly like the way that a Pollock painting would be. He turned his studio, as you see the picture that's here, this is him physically doing a Pollock type piece, an abstract piece, having all the paint splattered all over the floor, which was really unlike who he was. He was a very neat painter. Everything was very clean and organized. So for him to step out of himself and do something like this was kind of radical for him. But it was all in a good humored poke at the whole abstract art conversation. It was his way of saying, hey, look, I can do this too. I just choose not to. But that leads us into our artwork that we're going to do for this month, because we are going to do something very similar using last month's piece for this month's artwork. All right, now it is project time. Now, prior to coming into the classroom, you're going to want to contact the teacher and request that they pull out and have ready the Pollock paintings that they did last month, because they're going to be used in this month's project, where they'll be creating their own version of the connoisseur. So we're going to pass out some colorful construction paper, which they will place vertically, of course, put their name on the back, and then about 3 inches from the top, they're going to want to glue that abstract painting into place. And then they're going to take some markers and they're going to draw a beautiful frame around that painting. It could be very ornate, it could be very simple. And on the next slide is where we're going to show them some examples of different types of frames that they could draw in order to get those creative juices flowing. Once they've drawn their frame, they're going to create a floor pattern. So we're going to pass out a 9x2 piece of white drawing paper, and they're going to create a floor, diagonal lines, stripes, diamonds, geometric shapes, whatever it is that their mind can think of. So they will create that floor and then glue that in place at the bottom of the piece of construction paper. Next, we will pass out a photo of each kid. I went around to all the classrooms and took photos of the children, where they then, in the art cart, there's going to be stacks of them. They'll be rubber band together with the teacher's name on top of it. We're going to want to pass those out. Now, in the event that there isn't a photo available, maybe they were absent or I couldn't get back to take their photo for whatever reason, there are going to be some extra photos of Mr. Bishop in the art card as well. Oh, and there will also be extra Jackson Pollock paintings as well in the art card, because maybe someone was absent on that day that that project took place. So we have that covered. Extra Pollock paintings and extra photos of Mr. Bishop in the event that there isn't a photo of the student. So we pass that around, pass each student their photo. They cut it out and they glue it into place, standing on the floor as if they are being their own personal connoisseur of their Jackson Pollock painting. During the directions, I mentioned that there is a slide of frames, and this is that slide right here. You can pop over to here, show them all the different types of frames that they can do. Like I said, very ornate or very simple. The idea is to make it look very beautiful and very real if they can, in their own special personalized way. Once you've gone over this, you can go back to the directions and leave those up for the kids so that they can follow those along. And that's it. That is our lesson for this next month. That is our project. If you have any comments or questions or you need any help, by all means, please drop me a line or pick up the phone. I am here for you. Otherwise, I wish you happy creating.